Welcome to the Reinvent process. So, we're going to talk about how to build self esteem after heartbreak, trauma, and addiction. So, the whole class is based on the premise that we only allow into our lives what we believe we deserve. And when you change your beliefs about what you deserve, you change your life experiences. So, what you're going to need for this class, you're going to need a notepad and pen for writing exercise and an open mind. I love this quote. A problem cannot be solved with the same mind that created it. This was by Albert Einstein. He was a pretty smart guy, and he looks like he might have been a pretty cool dude. The premise here is that we all need different ideas to come to different conclusions, right? So, we are going to talk about this, how to rebuild self-esteem. But first, you might be wondering, who is this lady anyway? Well, my name is Arlena, and I help women rebuild self-esteem after addiction, heartbreak, and trauma. And this is a picture of me before. It's okay to laugh. This is a picture. This is sort of like my before picture, right? This is before I had healthy self-esteem. This is before I found recovery from drugs and alcohol. And you can tell this was a long time ago. I found recovery in 1994. And you can tell it was a long time ago because, dear God, I was wearing a scrunchie and I was on a telephone that had a curly cord. So this was pre-cell phones, if you can believe it. Good times, right? So listen, at the end of the day, our circumstances might be different, but people's feelings are all the same, and I just want you to know that I know what it feels like to have a painful childhood. I have nice parents, but they divorced, and some challenging things happened to me when I was a little girl. I was abused as a little girl by a neighbor, and that really did a number on my self-esteem, to say the least. That led me to, because of that low self-esteem, I fell into things like drugs and alcohol, and I suffered a lot of guilt and shame during that time before I found recovery. So, yeah, so our circumstances might be different, but our feelings are all the same, right? Pain is pain. So, um, I'm teaching this class because there have been so many people that have helped me on my journey over the last 25 years of recovery, and I really want to pay it forward. Another reason why I'm doing this is I'm carrying on my dad's legacy. He passed away last December, but before he died, he spent many years teaching GED classes in the jail as a volunteer. He also taught English as a second language out there in California at the men's jail. So when I had the opportunity to do this, I just jumped on it because I just felt like it was a way to carry on my dad's legacy. And quite frankly, it helps me too. Every time I go over this material, I am reminded of things that I know. We have a quick forgetter, so it's important to constantly repeat ideas that help us stay more positive. I don't know about you, but I have a tendency to, my mind has a tendency to think of negative things, which is normal because as human beings, we all have this primordial programming to look out for danger, right? That's how we survived and we've made it this far. So it's normal that your brain might be sort of wired to be on the defensive, but it's important to stay on top and go over the information that helps you stay positive and live a better life. And yeah, it helps me too. They say that repetition is the mother of mastery. So you're going to hear a lot of repeated ideas as I go through this entire presentation. And the message I want to leave you with is I've overcome it all. I've overcome this really low self-esteem. And frankly, I'm not a unique snowflake. If I can do it, you can do it too. All I did was leverage some exercises, some tools, some thoughts and ideas. I had lots of people help me process some information, old feelings, old ideas, and really try to just change my thinking, change the way I think so that I could improve my self esteem and therefore attract better things. And really, that's what we're talking about, right? What you'll learn today is, what self esteem really is. We're going to talk about why it matters and how you can rebuild your self esteem in 6 steps. I'm going to start off with the two most important self esteem building tools that I have come across in 26 years of studying things like recovery and self esteem. And this first one is, I think it's easy to overlook how simple a gratitude list, but gratitude actually carries with it a lot of power because it is it's a tool that you can use for free and it's easy to do just by focusing on gratitude. There are 1,000 things that go right every day, but we tend to focus on what's not working, right? We do that out of survival. But if you want to create a better life for yourself and rebuild your self esteem, the gratitude list puts you in that state of gratitude. And I'm telling you, it is magical. The other tool I'm going to recommend is being of service. If you want to have self esteem, you need to do esteemable acts, right? So, being of service does a couple of things for you. It takes you out of yourself, right? So that you get out of your problems for a minute. It's really just a way to give you a break, right? Give yourself a break from focusing on your problems. But also, when you extend kindness and empathy and gratitude and being of service of somebody else, it's amazing how often when you're trying to help somebody else, you end up saying the exact thing that you need to hear, which leads to the point that all the answers are within you. And it's just magical how they all come out when you're trying to be of service to someone else. So those are the two most important tools. If you take away nothing else from this class, I hope you take away the gratitude list and the acts of service. Okay, so let's talk about what self-esteem really is. What is this thing? So the dictionary definition is confidence in one's own worth or abilities or self-respect. And I would even take it one step further to say it's about self-love. And I'm not talking about a conceited, ego-driven, I'm better than you are kind of self-love. It is the basic, decent, that we are basically, it's this idea that we're decent human beings, right? At our core, we are decent human beings and everybody deserves a level of self-respect, right? And self-love is part of that. And why self-esteem matters. Listen, Mahatma Gandhi said it best. He said something along the lines of our thoughts become our beliefs and our beliefs determine our actions and our actions determine our character, which determines our reality, right? So we're invoking a few things. Repeated thoughts become beliefs, and from those beliefs, that's where all our decision making comes from, right? Everything that you decide about how you're going to spend your time, who you're going to spend your time with, what you're going to do, and how you take actions. And from those things, we invoke the law. Even if we don't know that that's what we're doing, we're invoking the law of cause and effect. So that's a really important principle of why self-esteem matters, because if you have good thoughts about yourself, and then you develop positive beliefs about yourself, beliefs about what you deserve, what you're capable of, then you make different choices and you take different actions. And there again lies the law of cause and effect, right? So that's why it's one reason why self-esteem matters. The other reason why self-esteem matters is, it all goes back to that idea of your thoughts. How you see yourself determines your reality, right? So if you don't think that you are, if you don't think you're good enough, if you don't think you're lovable enough, all those deep-seated beliefs, that we get from childhood, those become our repeated thoughts, which become our beliefs, which again goes to the actions and invoke the law of cause and effect. So let's improve how we see ourselves, right? Super important. And then we're going to talk about, let me just talk a second about a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. And there is a Stanford professor who came up with this idea of comparing the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. And the person with the fixed mindset is often susceptible to failure. So somebody who takes a test and they fail, they think, oh, that's it for me. I'm a failure. And they just take that and run with it in a very negative way versus somebody with a growth mindset. If somebody takes a test, that person that takes the test and fails will say, well, you know what can I do different next time? Maybe I can get a tutor. Maybe I can, practice or study more, or eat a good breakfast before you go in for the test, or ask for special accommodations. But they're going into a problem solving methodology versus a failure, give up, that's just accepting where they're at kind of a thing. So we're actually obviously going to lean towards the growth mindset, right? So here are the 6 steps to rebuilding self-esteem, and I'm just going to throw them all out all at once so you can write it down or just glance over the list and start thinking about it. We're going to talk about the law of attraction. That's like the law of cause and effect. The law of attraction is a really powerful tool that you can use to help you rebuild your self-esteem. It's about focusing on what you do want. And we're going to talk about the power of beliefs. I'm going to give you some cool examples about how powerful our minds and our beliefs are. And then we're going to talk about creating a new vision. It's like, where do you want to go, right? If we're going to be talking about, rebuilding your self-esteem, what do you want to rebuild your self-esteem to, right? There are 2 motivating forces. One is pain and one is pleasure. And so we're going to play a little bit with this new vision. We're going to let go of all restrictions and limitations and help you leverage the powerful tool of visualization. We're going to create a new vision that will compel you to move forward. And then we're going to uncover and reframe limiting beliefs. Those are the blocks that hold you back to getting what you want. We're going to talk about the forgiveness process, which is also one of those blocks that prevent you from receiving the good things in life. And we're going to talk about the self-care practice, so self-care, you wouldn't go to the gym once or eat a salad and expect to be fit and healthy forever, right? So self-care is about a practice, and practice meaning there will be times when you're really good about it and times that you won't be so much on the beam, right? It's normal for people to just like ebb and flow, and that's totally normal. And that's why a support system is really important. So we'll talk about all that. So first, one of my favorite things to talk about is the law of attraction. So we're going to be talking about what it actually is, why it matters, and how you can use it to your benefit. So the definition of the law of attraction is the concept that positive or negative thoughts and feelings, more importantly, the feelings, bring positive or negative experiences into a person's life. So you may not know it, but you have been utilizing the law of attraction all along, right? And that's a crazy thought, right? There has been a study that showed that people think between 60,000 and 80,000 thoughts per day, and that 95% of those thoughts are repetitive. And so you are literally at the level of thought and feeling, recreating the same day over and over again. It's basically like Groundhog's Day, right? So that's kind of the basic principle. The way the law of attraction works. Okay, so think of it like we are magnets. Human beings are like magnets, right? We are attracting to us or repelling things away from us at the level of thought and feelings. And this might sound like a far out attitude. Quantum physics, I know I don't look like a quantum physicist. However, the basic principles is that everything boils down to energy. We're talking about science. This isn't like some woo-woo spiritual nonsense. We're just talking about science, right? So everything is made up of energy. And we can all agree that at the basic core, everything is made up of, from all the way down from like your atoms and your molecules, everything is made up of positive and negative molecules. Or is it atoms? Atoms make up molecules in the either positive proton or negative neutron. And it's just interesting. If you've ever taken a chemistry class, you'll see that atoms are held together by positive and negative charges in different forms to create different elements. So at your very core, you are made up entirely of energy, everything that you can see. And even your thoughts and your feelings carry energy. And one of my favorite examples is that, have you ever walked, of course you have, walked into a room and the expression, I could cut the tension with a knife. Like you walk into a room and there's people and you're like, what is going on? Like you can feel it, that there is tension in the air. Well, what is tension? It's just thoughts and feelings, right? But you can feel it and it's a thing, right? And, or another fun example is if you've ever been at a concert and the room is just electric, like the music is intense and fun and everyone's having a great time, or at a sporting event and your team is winning and everyone's going crazy, you can just feel the electricity in the air, right? So thoughts and feelings carry an electric current or a frequency. And so the whole law of attraction is that we are going to tune your energy to the frequency of the things that you desire, right? It's like a radio station. A radio station has a radio frequency wave that goes out. And so you have to be tuned to the right station to get that frequency. So that's really what this whole process of leveraging the law of attraction to your favor is going to be all about. And what that really means, here's the good news and the bad news. You are the creator of your reality. I don't know if that's good news or bad news, but that is the truth. Here's a saying, the truth will set you free, but first it might piss you off. So anyway, it's the good news and the bad news, because if you are the creator of your reality, what you can do is be intentional about your thoughts and your feelings. You can actually choose your thoughts and feelings. Because what you think about, you bring about. And so we're going to focus on what you do want, not what you don't want. And I'm not going to suggest that you're not going to ever have negative feelings. And the way to process a negative feeling is I'll just break it down real quick because I don't have a slide for it. But the way to process negative feelings is a process called RAIN. And RAIN stands for recognize, acknowledge, investigate, and nurture. Did you see that? I had to think about it for a second. Spelling is not my superpower. But when you recognize that you are having a feeling, you can give it a little bit of space. You can recognize that your body is being taken over by anger or fear or pride or some kind of negative energy. And then allow yourself, maybe not right in the moment. Sometimes it's appropriate to remove yourself from a situation until you can allow it to have some space and just name it. Like, what is this feeling? Is it fear? Is it sadness? Is it anger? Just naming it out loud and investigate. It's like, where is it? Where am I holding this tension in my body? They say that the issues are in the tissues. And so we actually physically carry things like, they say people carry tension in their shoulders, you get tension headaches. It's like we are physically carrying negativity in our bodies. So acknowledging where it is, like sometimes you feel sick to your stomach, or sometimes you feel that anxiety in your chest. Where is it in your body? Investigate. And then the N stands for nurture. And then nurturing means, what is it that you need? What kind of validation do you need for those feelings? You can do a little journaling and writing exercises to get that all out. But that is a way to process negative feelings so that you can then focus on the feelings that you do want to create. I really wish I had a slide for that, but hopefully that makes sense. Note to self. Okay, so we're going to talk about the power of belief. Man, beliefs are, we're going to talk about what they are, how we develop beliefs, which is really important, and even more importantly, how you can change those beliefs. So, beliefs are I wish I could speak. The dictionary definition of a belief is an acceptance that a statement is true or that something exists. Another definition is trust, faith, or confidence in something or someone. A lot of times we think of beliefs in religious terms or spiritual terms, but it's really an idea that is repeated over and over, which is what I was going to say. Belief is a thought that is repeated over and over. So the thing about beliefs is they're stored in your subconscious mind, and the scale sort of represents the fact that your subconscious mind doesn't know whether something is true or it's false. It's like a scale. So if you have a negative thought about yourself, it's like putting a pebble on the negative side, right? And the more times you have that negative thought, the more the scale goes down. If you have a positive thought, the scale goes the other way. It's like it doesn't have any judgment whether it's true or not. It's just whatever you say the most becomes the belief. So that is the good news, that you can absolutely start to take control of your beliefs. So it's important to recognize or identify how we develop beliefs. So these are ideas that are formed in childhood, and they don't necessarily need to be based in fact, right? So, they're just ideas that are repeated. And like I said, they're stored in your subconscious mind. And I'm going to go over quickly a concept called confirmation bias, but this is how it works. So you have ideas that are formed in childhood. As little kids, we don't have the ability to discern whether something is true or not. We lack context. We lack we just really are completely innocent and dependent on the adults around us. So these ideas formed in childhood come from parents, grandparents, extending family members, siblings. They can come from teachers, authority figures, people that we respect and admire and love. And sometimes, people, being human and having frailties, will say things that are not positive or supportive. And in fact, a lot of times, abuse and trauma in childhood come from the people that are supposed to love you and protect you the most, right? And it's our parents that instill these ideas that have the most impact, that are rooted in our subconscious mind. And they're the ones telling us the same ideas over and over again. So if you didn't grow up with a supportive, loving parent, if you grew up with an abusive parent who told you weren't good enough, you weren't smart enough, that it was certain things were your fault, or they were angry because of you, you were blamed. I mean, these are very detrimental ideas that get implanted in our brains, and it shapes who we think we are and our self-esteem, and then it sets the tone for the rest of the life. Not everybody, even people that have positive parents, are still subject to receiving negative messages that get implanted in our subconscious mind, which is why self-esteem work is so important, because everybody has to overcome those ideas. And then the confirmation bias piece is interesting, because once a belief is formed in the mind, it could be conscious or subconscious, then we just look for information to support our beliefs. And you'll see this in politics all the time. People make a decision, and they will only validate the information that they like, to the exclusion of the information that they don't like. So if you grow up with an idea that you feel like you're not good enough, even if you achieve something really good, an achievement, you do something nice for somebody else, those things are all overlooked because they don't conform to your belief that you're not good enough, right? So those things that you do well, or the feelings that you're a good person, are often easily dismissed if you don't have good self-esteem. So we're going to talk about we're going to talk about placebos, I guess. PowerPoint's fun. So we're going to talk about the power of beliefs, and we're going to first start with placebos. So a placebo is a really interesting concept that started, I believe it was like in the 1800s, when doctors would go see patients and they wouldn't have enough medicine, and they would give them something, right? Because patients, if they were given something, would often start to feel better, even if it wasn't the actual medicine. And in today's world, in the pharmaceutical industry, when they test a medication, they will have two groups of people. One group of people will get the actual medicine, and the other group will receive what they call a placebo or a sugar pill. And what's interesting about the placebos is that those people who receive the sugar pill or the placebo have up to 70% of the benefit that the actual medicine provides. So that just speaks to the power. If people believe it, then they will see it, right? It's not, we often hear, I'll believe it when I see it. But in this case, people actually see it when they believe it. Beliefs come first. Another fun example of the power of beliefs is Roger Bannister in the 1950s. It was commonly accepted, like back in the day, it was commonly accepted that the world was flat, or we were the only planet in the universe, or the sun revolved around the earth. There were these ideas that people knew for sure were fact. And one of the facts that people used to believe in the 1950s, that the human body was not capable of breaking the 4-minute mile. And Roger Bannister was a track athlete, and he had this really intense belief that he could do it. And he actually broke the record of the 4-minute mile. And what was interesting about the Roger Bannister story is, since he did it, there have been over 1,500 people who have also broken the 4-minute mile. How is that possible? All of the scientists were sure that the human body couldn't break the 4-minute mile. And then along comes Roger Bannister. Everybody saw it and they believed it, and they were able to do it as well. But Roger Bannister believed it first, and then he saw it. So that was a really interesting example. And this last one's really crazy. There was a patient that was documented to having multiple personalities. This guy, Timothy, I think his name was, had multiple personalities. He had an alter ego. Let's call him George. I don't know what his name was. But Timothy had a terrible food allergy. And if he ingested this food as the personality Timothy, he would break out in terrible hives and have a terrible physical reaction to that food. The crazy thing is that when he would shift into his alter ego, George could actually ingest that same food allergen and not have any reaction. So how do we explain that? This is documented. It was a documented case study where this person with the same physiology but different beliefs, different psychology, was having a reaction, and then one wasn't. Same body, right? Very crazy. So that just kind of speaks to the power of beliefs. So, having all this information, we are going to talk about creating a new vision, right? And so we are going to leverage the positive motivation, right? We are going to create a new vision that is so compelling that gets you thinking and feeling a certain way of feeling positive and excited, something that's going to pull you forward. So we're going to talk about your future self, and I'm just going to throw this whole writing exercise up. I hope you can read it. But it's really based on, what do you really want? What would you allow yourself if there were no limitations? What would you really want? And we're going to try 2 writing exercises, because the one-time writing exercise is about your perfect day. And this is sort of like a way for you to break those mental blocks of limitations and just have a little fun, like use your imagination. You're going to write your perfect day in as much detail as you can, using your 5 senses, smell, touch. Think about the temperature, think about the kind of clothes you wear, what they feel like, who are you with, where do you wake up in the morning, what does it smell like, the food you eat, what does it taste like. Try to get as detailed as you can about what your perfect day would feel like. That's a really fun exercise. There was a teacher that was at Harvard who talked about she would have her students do this writing exercise about their perfect day. And they would often come back, 5, 10 years later and being like, that writing exercise I did about my perfect day, about my future self, like what would my future successful self be doing in their perfect day? They would come back and tell her that they're living that life, right? And so even Albert Einstein talked about that visualization and imagination is more important than intelligence, right? Because first you have to visualize it and imagine it before it can become reality. So that's a really fun exercise. And then there's the daily writing exercise. And the daily writing exercise is more focused on a specific goal that you want to achieve or materialize. And so you're going to write about it as if it's already happened. I do this myself all the time with sort of smaller goals that I want to achieve, because once I know what the goal is out here, what my future self wants to achieve, and I really start thinking about it, and feeling things about it, I can then determine the steps between where I am and what I want to achieve. But thinking and feeling about it gets you in tune to that frequency that we were talking about earlier. And just as an example, I'll start my writing exercises in the morning with, I am so happy and grateful now that, and then try to write about it as if it's already happened in as much detail as you can think of, right? So those are two more writing exercises for you to help you sort of get into that forward thinking, positive, like what you think about, you bring about, right? Let's focus on what you do want, not what you don't want. So we're going to talk about reframing limiting beliefs. And this is where we kind of talk about how to manage or navigate some of those negative beliefs. So it's not like we're going to pretend like you don't have negative beliefs, but what we are going to do is try to identify them and then change them. But first, what is a limiting belief? So it's a belief that is rooted in a fixed mindset that keeps you stuck in a repeated pattern. So we talked about most people have the 95% of the thoughts that you have are the same as the day before. So we're going to start to slowly shift gears into thinking about something else, something that you want to create. But first you sort of have to catch what those subconscious negative beliefs are. And those are the tricky ones, right? Because they're subconscious. But you might catch yourself saying something like, nothing good ever happens to me. Or if you suffer the consequences of, like eating too much and you're gaining weight and you're like, oh, it's just the way I am. I can't help it. My body, I hear people say things like, oh, my body just likes to hang on to weight. Be very careful about what you say. Or it starts, if you find yourself saying things like, I'll always, or I'll never, those are, ideas that are rooted in a fixed mindset. And those are like your clues for where your negative limiting beliefs are. These are your limiting beliefs. And so what we're going to do is we assign meaning to things that happen. So what we're going to try to do is shift the meaning. Like, what else could it mean? So this is how we start to change our beliefs. And here's another writing exercise for you. So what are the areas in your life that you have really tried to improve, but no matter what, things just don't get better? So these are your limiting decisions that are hiding out in areas where you're producing results that you don't want. So one of the exercises that we'll just jump to, I don't know if I've left this up there long enough, but I think you get the idea. These are where the clues are, right? It's like, where are the areas that you find yourself in a repeating pattern? So here's the actual writing exercise. You want to list all the reasons why you don't have what you want. Those are your limiting beliefs. And so we're going to write out as many as you can, and just keep brainstorming. Don't edit, don't judge. Just write down all the reasons why you don't have what you want. And then we're going to work on reframing those in a growth mindset sort of statement. So, how to reframe a limiting belief. I'm going to just give you some examples. This is going to be something that might take some time. You might ask a friend or somebody else who is doing this exercise. If you get stuck on one, sometimes it's easier for somebody else to see you a little more clearly than you can see yourself. It's always easier to give advice to somebody else than sometimes to know what your own answers are. And the reason is because emotion clouds our perspective. When we're emotional about something, we can't see it clearly. That's why it's always so easy. You have a friend that comes to you and you're like, you know exactly what they should do. They can't see it because their decision-making process is clouded by emotion, right? So that's why you don't ever want to make decisions when you're emotional, because you're not actually seeing things clearly, right? So another reason why we need each other. But anyway, here are a couple of examples of how to reframe a limiting belief. So for instance, if you say, nothing good ever happens to me, I'll go back to that statement I said earlier when we talked about doing a gratitude list. There are 1,000 things that go right every day. We just have to notice them, right? And what we focus on grows, right? What you think about, you bring about. You will start to notice. If you start looking for it, you will start to notice all the little good things, right? These are things that you're writing down on your gratitude list, things that are happening, right? So that's just a little shift. Sometimes it's the tiniest shifts that change the entire trajectory, right? And I'm going to give you a little golfing analogy. Everyone's seen a golf club, and the head of the golf club is like this big, let's say 4 or 5 inches long. But it's amazing that if the angle is just off a little bit, the ball will shoot off into crazy directions, right? But a tiny shift will change the entire trajectory of the ball. So that's what this is about, right? We are making tiny mental shifts in our thinking that will shift our beliefs, that will change the entire trajectory of our lives. Okay, so here's another example. So the idea that it's just the way I am. So that's a fixed mindset. We all have the ability to learn new things and continue to evolve. And the truth of the matter is that we are always evolving based on our thoughts. You can take in new information, you can learn new skills, and increase your value by increasing your skill set. Like, there is always something new to learn. So that's just a couple of examples to, after you have your whole list of limiting beliefs, all the reasons why you don't have what you want, you can start to recognize limiting beliefs and then reframe them. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is the forgiveness process. And this is really about self-forgiveness, right? I know that a lot of people have a lot of work to do around forgiving others, but for the sake of this exercise, we're going to talk about self-forgiveness. We tend to be our own worst critics, right? We all have like this inner critic or this inner mean girl. We are often crueler to ourselves than other people. I mean, I remember when I first started this journey of recovery, they would tell me things like, you wouldn't speak to a friend that way and still expect to be friends with them. So you have to learn not to talk to yourself that way, which is really challenging at first, but I'm here to tell you it can be done. However, so the forgiveness process begins with identifying causes of guilt and shame. And it can run the gamut from, feeling bad about yelling at a friend when you weren't feeling good. Sometimes we lash out with our words. We're quick to anger. It's typically because we have a lot of pent up negative emotions that need resolution. And, I gave you the RAIN process. So that's something that helps over the long term. But I'm talking about identifying the causes of guilt and shame. And guilt and shame are experiences that everybody has. Every major religion or spiritual practice in the world has a way to navigate and deal and resolve that issue of guilt and shame. because it is part of the human experience. I don't care, how good people are. Everybody feels like I could be better. I could be doing more, especially if you're growing and evolving and trying to be the best person you can be. Everybody falls short. Everybody falls short. And so we need a way to sort of mitigate. That's the word I was looking for. We need a way to mitigate that guilt and shame, right? And I'm just going to suggest that confession is good for the soul. I think every major religion has that as well. So, of course, you want to be discreet about, your confessions, right? Like, you don't have to tell everybody everything, but there are religious people, there are professionals, sometimes we have confidants that you can trust, or anonymous places where you can confess, but it's just really about naming it, right? Something about naming it takes the power out of it. There's a saying in 12-step recovery groups that you're only as sick as your secrets, right? So we are getting rid of those. You can just dump them. And I really want to stress that when we know better, we do better, right? I believe that, everybody makes the decisions they make with the information that they have based on, our beliefs, right? Like this whole time we've been talking about, how you feel about yourself determines, the decisions, which ultimately determines your reality. And I think if we have been given better information, like we're not taught coping skills in school, or sometimes we're not taught at home. I know I didn't get them at home. Sometimes you're taught unhealthy coping skills or survival skills, and that doesn't translate into adulthood. We make bad decisions. Everybody does it, right? But I'm here to tell you that I really believe that when we know better, we do better, right? And that helps us to forgive the people who raised us sometimes too. And empathy is the antidote to shame. And I got that from Dr. Brene Brown. She is this doctor who is a self-proclaimed shame researcher. If you ever get a chance to read any of her books or see any of her TED Talks, she even has a podcast now. She is wildly popular. I think her YouTube video had something like 50 million downloads. I mean, she just really struck a nerve, because there are so many people that have like all this hidden shame, if I can speak. People have all this hidden shame that needs to be forgiven and released and resolved, right? We all want that relief that comes from the empathy that we receive. And so empathy is absolutely the antidote to shame. So here's another writing exercise I've been teaching this writing exercise for many years now, and it is by far one of the most powerful healing forgiveness exercises that I know of. So I'm just going to put up this whole thing to give you a minute to absorb it. But here's the deal. Each of us was once an innocent little child, and that child still lives within us, right? And so the exercise is that I want you to see yourself as a little girl between ages, let's say 6 and 8. I'm just pulling that out of the thin air. But I actually have a picture of myself on my desk. I'm probably about 5 years old. So that's what I use when I do this writing exercise. But let's just say between 6 and 8 years old. And I want you to think of a time when she was a little girl and she was sad and that she didn't get the support she needed. So you could go back into your childhood, see yourself in the house that you grew up in, see yourself in the space where you felt sad, the most sad or angry or whatever. And I want you to write a letter to that little girl, because we all have those periods of time when we didn't get what we needed, right? So I want you to write a letter to her and tell her everything that she needed to hear at that age to feel safe, loved, and supported. And I'll tell you, I've had so many people come back to me over the years talking about how, in a group setting or a class setting, if there's time, people will read their letters to the group and everybody's always crying because it's like that innocence lost, right? It was that time when we were young and we needed the most support and we didn't get it. So as adults, we are now capable. We as adults now are more resourceful. We have more context. We have more information. We're bigger. We're stronger. We're more powerful than we were when we were little, right? When you're little, you're so vulnerable and helpless. And so we're going to come to that little girl as a powerful woman and tell her that from now on, we're going to keep her safe, right? And so that's a commitment that you make to yourself that moving forward, you're going to be doing this self-esteem building exercises so that you keep that little girl safe because she's still in there and she still needs you. I love that exercise. Okay, so this is the basic format of a self-care practice. So I do this myself every day, totally practice what I preach. So every morning I get up, I do a little bit of prayer and meditation. I do some journaling. I write a gratitude list and I feed my brain. So I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. I want to talk about prayer and meditation. You know, you can let go of any kind of, religious. If religion doesn't fit for you, that's totally fine. Prayer and meditation is about speaking out into the energy of the universe. I mean, you can sort of redefine it any way you want it in a way that works for you, right? If you are into religion, that's awesome. Then leverage that. If you're not and you like science, then you can break it down to, the energy, thinking about whatever you put out comes back to you, right? So that's what prayer is. You're putting out, it's a request for help is really what it is, and guidance, help and guidance. Meditation is interesting because a lot of people misunderstand what that is. It's not about, sitting in the lotus position saying om, although that's one way to do it. But really the goal is to be fully present in the moment. You can start off with 5 minutes at a time. And what's going to happen is you're going to focus on your breathing and get quiet. Try to still your body. You try to still your mind and just be in the present moment. Focus on your breath. That's meditation. That's all it is. And what's going to happen is your brain is going to start thinking. That's the job of your brain. Your brain's job is to think. And so every time you notice that your brain is thinking, you just notice it and you bring it back to the breath. You release the thought, bring it back to the breath. If you have to do it 1,000 times in a 5-minute period, do it 1,000 times. It's kind of like mental push-ups, right? But the idea is that you're training your brain to slow down and relax. And the reason I'm asking you to practice meditation is because that's what it gives your brain a break, right? It helps you to think more clearly. There are so many benefits to meditation. It's difficult to express it in this short amount of time. But the idea of meditation is that you are receiving inspiration, you are slowing things down, you are resting, you are nurturing your body, mind, and spirit, right? So prayer and meditation is the first thing in the morning. It's better that you do it in the morning because then it sets off your entire day, but do it whenever you can. Not everyone is a morning person. And then journaling and gratitude list. Journaling is a way to just do a brain dump. If you have all kinds of negative thinking, depression, it's good to just journal and just get it all out of your head, get it all out of your heart, and just purge. It's like all the resentment and negativity inside your body. It's not good for you, right? Like we said, the issues are in the tissues. So journaling is a mental way of just doing a negativity dump. And then switch gears to gratitude, right? You could list 5 different things every day that you are grateful for, right? And it can be the slightest thing. It can be that you could wiggle your toes, that you can speak, that you have all your teeth, or that you have all your fingers. I don't know. There's a bazillion things that we can be grateful for, right? We can be grateful for our friends. We can be grateful for new ideas. The list is endless, but the idea is that 5 things every day on your gratitude list, minimum. And then feed your brain. I often read I have a daily reader, or you could read an inspirational book, an instructional book. There's all kinds of ways to feed your brain. You can have discussions with people who are positive. Surround yourself with good information and feed your brain positive things. As you feed your brain positive things, it actually edges out negativity, right? The more you focus on positive things, the less space there is for negativity. Okay, so that was a lot of information. So I'm going to do a quick recap to just sort of break it all down, leave you with three concepts, right? So if you change your beliefs about what you deserve, you will change your reality. That's one big thing I want to leave you with. Use the power of visualization and tools like prayer, meditation, gratitude, and service to help rebuild your self esteem. This is an ongoing process, right? So you can absolutely take control and rebuild your self esteem, right? And rebuilding self-esteem is an ongoing process. I know I keep saying it, but it's true. Just like that example I gave earlier, that you wouldn't go to the gym once or eat one salad and expect to be fit and healthy forever, right? This is an ongoing process. So, as you practice, right, you get better and better every time you practice something, right? Repetition is the mother of mastery. So repeat this as much as you can. It's a practice. There is no perfectionism here. It's just, if you made an effort, that's a win. You can feel good about that, right? Put that on your gratitude list. And as you grow and evolve, you will start to inspire others. It's one of those laws, it's unavoidable, right? And that actually contributes to your self-esteem. So, connection with others is really the key. New beliefs require nurturing, right? And so when you surround yourself with like-minded friendships, that will help create an environment that will support this new way of thinking and your new self-esteem that you've spent so much energy rebuilding, right? And practice patience, right? Nobody is perfect overnight. There is no perfectionism. It's just be patient with yourself. Grant yourself the patience that you would a small child. It's like, how many chances do you give a baby to walk? You give them as many chances as they need, right? So this applies to you too. Be gentle with yourself. This is a lifelong practice. And I am fully confident that as you take action and implement these ideas and you start making the shift, that magical things will happen in your life. And that's it. I just want to thank you for your attention. I hope that this was helpful. These are all the things that have helped me in my life, and I just want to pass it on. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about it, and I wish you all the best, and thank you so much for your time.